Welcome to Practice Excellence Live 2017. I'm John Stockdyke from Accounting Web, and this is the second episode in a digital track that's been sponsored by Xero. We're going to be looking at the future of practice and what 2018 is going to hold, and with me I've got Paul Bulpitt from the WOW Company and Xero's Head of Accounting, and Will Farnell from Farnell Clark. And we're going to chew over the kind of underlying trends in the profession, some of the compliance issues, and just the other things that practitioners need to be thinking about at the moment as they look ahead. Now, before we get into the whole future, let me bring you back to right now. This event is going out live on YouTube and on Accounting Web, but if you are taken away or there's any interruption, you can always come back. There will be an on-demand copy on our YouTube channel available for you to have a look at. We also have a companion report all about the findings from the Practice Excellence and Xero benchmark research to see what the kind of leading firms do. And finally, I've got Paul and Will here. You know, they've just got tons of good ideas. If you'd like to ask them any questions during the talk or at the end, just write it in the Cover It Live box next to where you're viewing this broadcast, and I'll be picking them up on my iPad, and I'll try and throw them into the pot as we go along. There'll be about a 30-minute formal session, and then there's 10-15 minutes at the end for your questions. But let's start with one of mine, I guess. Future, it's big. In fact, I like to quote the old William Gibson maxim, the future is already here, it's just unevenly distributed. You two are maybe the people who are, to a lot of the viewers, are already living in the future. But when you in your own firms, can you tell us first a little bit about who you are, what you do, but how do you plan and look to the future at the WOW first, Paul?
Sure. So the WOW Company's been going since 2004. We've been online, as it were, since 2009-10, when a Kiwi client of ours came back from New Zealand with this amazing accounting software. Probably the first time I ever saw anyone get excited about accounting software, and we've been in love with Xero ever since. Now got about 40 staff at WOW with clients all over the UK. So go back to your question in terms of planning and how we plan. I think the challenge for us really is we operate best when everyone's clearly aligned around a kind of a clear vision, a clear strategy. Our mission is to be the accountants that you've always dreamed of. So kind of unpicking that, figuring that out, sitting down with each individual department and, okay, how does that matter for how we onboard new clients? How does that play out for our payroll service, for example? And then working that up into a plan. So we're going through a process at the moment for 2018, but also with a view to sort of like the next 3 to 5 years.
And Will, tell us a little bit about Farnell Clark and your kind of disposition towards the future and how you plan for it.
So I set Farnell Clark up in 2007, so we're 10 years old as a firm now. We moved to the cloud in 2008 and we're at 100% cloud practice in 2009. We've had a whole bunch of challenges en route in terms of changing platforms and various other things. But we're 35 staff now. Certainly in the early stage of our development, our cloud proposition was kind of our USP. So the challenge for the future for us is always about what's our USP next. What is it that we do as a business? In terms of the future, it kind of never arrives. It's always something we're looking at, and my head's always in the future, and my body's kind of in the now. So it's what do we have to do now to get to where my head is at any one time. So it's constantly evolving. It's constantly challenging what we do as a business in terms of how we meet the needs of our staff and more importantly our clients.
Okay, well, thanks for that intro. We're both sort of getting a nice sort of stake in the ground of your philosophies. Let me put a horizon on it then, though. We have promised the viewers we're going to look at the stuff they need to think about for the next year or so. So what are the issues that are, you think will be the highest priorities in next year, Paul?
So I think there's some obvious challenges we have coming up. So readiness for MTD, GDPR, but the underlying theme beneath all of this is sort of like a digital transformation. One thing we talk about is, if you remember when the TV sets switched from analog to digital, there's kind of this digital switchover going that underpins all of this, really. So I think that digital switchover is really like the big thing that I expect to see more of in 2018.
Because again, Will, it was interesting how the compliance issues do tend to rear up and attract the most attention. So we do have MTD on the cards and GDPR. But which ones are you looking out for over the next year?
So I think following on from Paul's point, really, MTD is a compliance-driven initiative. Again, it's the stuff that we always get thrown at in terms of it was auto enrolment, it was RTI. We can go back and back and back, and there are always compliance-based changes we have to make. But actually, I think the thing with MTD is that MTD is this massive opportunity for firms. It's a real catalyst to actually look at what firms do and how they do it, and it becomes part of this digital transformation exercise. I talk to firms and we talk about MTD, and actually MTD should be seen as this huge opportunity to actually begin to look and question how we do things. It's not a case of taking a client from a desktop platform onto a cloud platform to tick a box for MTD. You have to change the mindset, you have to change the processes that sit underneath that. And that's what the opportunity is for firms to really think about if they do it early enough. If you leave it until January 2019 and you've got to comply with MTD for VAT by April 2019, you're going to have a problem. You think about it now, you've got an opportunity to really start to question what you do and how you do it.
So what actual things are you doing now to prepare your clients and your systems for MTD?
So we're in that fortunate position that from an MTD point of view, all of our clients are on zero. We're using Receipt Bank for getting that data in. We get data in from clients on a daily basis. So we kind of are in a slightly complacent position perhaps, in terms of we're sitting there and thinking our technology partners are going to do the work for us. So certainly in terms of the MTD for business, we're pretty well covered. We have challenges like most firms when it kicks in and hits individuals. We're starting to think about how we manage that through the technology platforms that are available to us. So for us, we're sitting here reasonably relaxed about it, because it just becomes another part of our process. But that's because we've done the hard work to get to that point. And it does take time, it takes education, so firms need to be thinking about it sooner rather than later, certainly.
I mean, are you doing anything radically different for MTD?
So I think Will makes some really good points there. But there's a big bit of this which is education. So if you were to go out and speak to our client base or business owners as a whole, the general awareness of what MTD is very low. And actually there's a big, our role as accountants, I believe, is to go and educate our clients and let them know what's coming. That's probably the single biggest challenge.
Okay, fun enough you mentioned it. I'd like to, you talked, actually, you thought almost like the big future issue for you is digital transformation. And just to tie it to MTD, I mean, we've seen in this year's entries and the Software Excellence Survey we've done a massive cloud adoption. It's almost like the second wave. You guys were in that pioneering first wave. The minute MTD came down the pike, practitioners just almost, it's doubled the adoption since 2015. Since the day George Osborne got up and said he's the end of the tax return. So with that big adoption wave, and the same has happened with the expenses capture tools like Receipt Bank. Everybody's doing it. Everyone's charged in, and a lot of our entrants. We saw a lot of entries from people telling us the thing about us is we're so great is we're a cloud first firm. We're all digital. So, you've gone past that, but can you sort of offer any analysis or insight for those firms who sort of see cloud as a great digital record keeping platform? is that the right way to go about it, or what next would you sort of suggest?
So John, this stuff's hard. So as accountants, you're trying to do your day job, you're running a firm, you're managing staff, you're managing clients, and all this stuff's going on. So I think the digital record keeping is great as a first step. Actually, the next thing to do is to, as soon as people start achieving those benefits, once they've got a critical mass of their clients on some sort of online platform, is to then start looking at their processes, basically like re-engineering their processes. So step one is to do what you used to do, but in the cloud, if you like, or online. Step two then is to think, well, actually, there's a world of possibility open to us. What does this world look like?
I mean, does that mirror what you did at Farnell Clark, Will?
Well, I think we've had the benefit of having done it for a long time. Certainly, at the point that we migrated 500 plus clients from one cloud platform to another cloud platform, the thing that broke the back of that and enabled us to do it was at the point that we dedicated resource to do that job. Whilst we kind of tinkered with it and did a little bit here and a little bit there, it wasn't happening. Something else always took priority. So it's very much a case of setting that dedicated project resource to make this transformation. I'd perhaps go a little bit further than Paul there and say that actually I think some firms could be wasting valuable time by not actually stopping and thinking about what does this enable us to do, rather than shift your data from desktop to cloud and then say, great, we've got a way of keeping records, we meet MTD. Almost kind of looking at that and saying, well, what has to change underneath that in terms of what does that technology enable us to do in terms of client delivery? Start thinking about the impact it has on your pricing approach. So all of this kind of stuff is sit down in a room, think about the strategy, think about why are you doing it, and if it's just to meet MTD, then it's probably not the right reason. So have a rethink about what the driver is for it. What do you want to be? Do you want to be a digital practice or not? And if you don't, there's clearly options, but they generally involve kind of bailing out. So use it as an opportunity to think about the why, and that will give you the how.
So you're giving us sort of a good line on like the proactive mindset. With Gareth, I'm going to bring us back for a second. Gareth has popped up, and he's sort of mentioned MTD, but he's kind of also linked it to another issue you mentioned, GDPR. And it's it's not a subtle point. It's quite important for a lot of the viewers. Is you've got these big compliance beasts looming, but there's no guidance for them yet. They don't know how or what's going to be. The guidance for both of those. It's that there is a vacuum. Does that stop you planning and actually doing anything within the practice to affect those?
So
we got Will doing the sort of process and the modelling of MTD, but let's use GDPR as a separate example.
So there is so there's some information out there, but like you say, we're figuring out. So I came across an interesting website yesterday called gdprready.co.uk that you can kind of do a self-assessment. But Gareth's completely right. There's not enough support. There's certainly a load of people professing to be GDPR experts at the moment, but little substance. I think from like my view and my experience, like every year we look back, we'll mention RTI, auto enrolment, IXBRL. Like every year, every 18 months, there's something, isn't there? And actually, it's just how we deal with it. We dealt with all of this before. We know we will deal with it. It's really just to build in that resilience within our planning, within our processes, but most importantly, within our people.
Anything to add on this?
I just think in terms of the MTD question and the uncertainty around MTD, that for me is it's a massive opportunity. So what firms can do is they can start to engage with their clients and say, we don't know what MTD looks like. We know it's coming. We can start to get you ready for that point. Once clients actually understand what it does entail, then there's the possibility, clearly the wrong one, but clients could be sitting there and saying, well, I only need to have 0 and I can meet MTD myself, so why do I need the accountant? So we have this opportunity to kind of almost get in first and start that dialogue and talk to clients and get them ready for when it happens, whilst there's still an element of uncertainty around what it's actually going to look like in the end.
And I think longer term with MTD, in 5 years' time we won't be talking about MTD, and in 10 years' time we'll be looking back laughing that it was ever such a big deal. It will just be the way that we've always the way we've always done it.
Yeah, I hope we can. We've had a few laughs along the way so far, and a few thrills and spills. Okay, let's. Thanks for handling that from Gareth. Let's move on to a couple of other issues I'd like to try and get through. Machine learning and artificial intelligence. We talked about it last year in these. Like we're doing now, that was the big future prediction we were making, and I remember thinking this is ages off, but it's actually around us. We've got entrants who are telling us about how they're applying it in their practice, and I've been reading about automatic bill coding that's going on in the background. What do you think is going to happen around machine learning? What's the impact going to be over the next year or so?
So I think the impact we'll see over the next year or so is a range of innovations. Like you said, within Xero, we already have some automatic coding, which is it's just really cool. And machine learning specifically over the next 12 months is going to be just about automation and making us more efficient, effective. I think longer term, the opportunity is absolutely mind blowing, and we can't imagine to what degree we're just at the beginning of this.
Well, you will, and you sort of consciously planning processes or planning to bolt in machine learning tools that will.
So we kind of use a lot of the tools that have that built in already. Receipt Bank's a great example. The stuff that Xero's doing, there's elements of machine learning in Xero already. So we're looking to our technology partners to deliver that. I think the important thing to understand for us is that we're always going to be ready to apply this stuff when it's available. We're not going to stop and think about it. We're just going to do it. We take risk on technology, we always have, but it's about how does that cut steps out of our processes, which free up more staff time to spend time with clients, because I think we're going to come on to it anyway, but the big stuff for us as a firm now is all about client experience. So how can we begin to automate some of that client experience stuff as well? That's going to require technology to help us do that.
Yeah.
And so if you take that then from a client perspective and take the logical conclusion, I don't think accountants are going to have their collective doors knocked down by people saying, oh wow, you do machine learning, oh you do artificial intelligence. That's just the technology that underpins what we do. The real thing here that everyone's, I think, getting lost in a little bit, it's actually just about the people. The way in the future as firms of accountants and bookkeepers we can differentiate ourselves is through that which only humans can do, is that people stuff, and actually too much like focus or attention on machine learning or artificial intelligence, whilst it's really cool and really exciting, it's actually that people bit is the secret ingredient.
Technology is the leveller, and it kind of goes back to for us for probably 7 of our 10-year existence, technology played a major competitive advantage for us because we were doing stuff that other firms weren't doing. There is going to come a time where pretty much every firm is going to be applying the same technology. They're going to have access to the same tools. So it then becomes, what is the differentiator? And we're going to go back to good old-fashioned client service and who delivers the best service, and what is it about your values as a business that will make people want to buy from you rather than from somebody else.
I'm glad you raised the people issue, because it's the next point on our agenda. Although very specifically the sort of generational changes that we're seeing. I mean, I represent a certain demographic, with a bit more grey hairs and a wider waistline, and you two kind of more more in the intermediate years below. But what we don't have here today maybe is one of those 27-year-old, or you're obviously 27, Paul, but one of the new generation accountants.
Next birthday, yeah.
We've seen all this wave of formation. There's all these new firms being set up by quite young accountants. The barriers to entry have dropped. What kind of challenges are the changing demographics posing for you?
So I think Will and I have different views on this. I think there's quite a lot talked about millennials and everyone dumped in the same bucket. But actually what we're seeing is a change in client behaviours. So my mum's on WhatsApp. My dad uses an iPad as his main device. We've got 70-year-old farmers who are driving around in their combine harvesters running their business on iPads. I think to say that this is all just about millennials or digital natives can be a bit of a cop-out at times. I think as a nation, as a population, our behaviours are changing, and actually accounting firms need to adapt and adjust to accommodate that.
Absolutely. Technology is a driver for differing expectations from clients. We've taken a very firm view about our desire to engage with the millennial generation as a firm. It comes back to that future proofing concept. So various stats out there. 75% of the workforce by 2025 are millennial generation. So we as a firm have to ensure that we can attract the best of that generation to come and work for us, because we've said it's about people. So we want the best people servicing our clients. So we've fitted our office, we've put a pub in our office, we've done lots of things that is about attracting the right kind of staff. But if 75% of the workforce is going to be millennial generation, then a good chunk of those are going to be our clients as well. So we want a client proposition that is going to tick the box for the perceived expectations of the millennial generation.
And what have you done so far to put that in place?
Our brand is a big part of that. So we have developed a brand, and we have technology solutions that underpin and support what our brand is setting out. The way we engage with clients is shifting. We're beginning to look at using social media platforms. We have our pub, and we call it the Tax and Pounds, and we've set up a social club on Facebook that people can join and share challenges and various other things like that. So it's about just finding different ways to engage with clients, manage those different client touch points that we have throughout the year.
Can you maybe just pick up a point that Steph M has put forward? But can you give pubs a nice client experience? But we'll pass. That's not quite that's a beer flow, not a workflow. Can you give any other examples of your sort of workflows that have altered the client experience?
So we've used Receipt Bank for 5 years or so now. That's the starting point of our process. So all of our clients have access to Receipt Bank. The majority of them use it themselves, so they'll forward emails, they'll photo receipts. That comes in our ideal client follows a particular workflow. So if we take that as an example, we get Receipt Bank transactions in. First thing our staff do every morning is clear their allocated clients' Receipt Bank transactions. They'll then jump into Xero. The bank feeds will have come in from Xero. They'll clear down the bank reconciliation items. So we're doing that on a daily basis. At the end of the week, we'll have a list of exceptions that we'll flag with the clients. So it's about trying to make sure that we are giving clients as up-to-date data as we possibly can. It's not, Paul and I have had this conversation before, it's not real time, it's kind of live-ish. So that lets us have an understanding of what clients are doing. They know the process, they understand the process, they know what's going on in the background, and it positions us really well to be able to support them in a number of different ways with reporting and advisory and various other things as well.
Now, the other area where we're seeing a lot of a surge in the entries to the practice excellence, in particular amongst those, it's very new for the startup firms, but also any other firm that's looking for a growth opportunity. They're all specialising in a particular niche. I guess that gets us a little bit onto some of the technology opportunities. I mean, how important is niche to you guys?
So I think the niche thing is just smart business as much as anything else in some way. So you've got a finite resource, finite like marketing pot, if you like. So how do you get the best bang for your buck? And actually, by going like really deep into a particular industry or particular specialisation, and then building out expertise and service models around that is just effective as much as anything else. So we've been really successful at the Wow Company in pursuing a niche strategy but it's just more that it's effective. That's our main driver behind it.
What about you? Do you have a sort of particular niche-driven approach, or are you aiming at any new areas?
The way we set the business up initially attracted to a particular type of business, and like Paul, we were early adopters, so it was creative type businesses that started to use the solutions that we had. It may have been as simple as they could run it on a Mac. 9 years ago, that was kind of a big issue. You couldn't run desktop accounting software on a Mac generally. So we built some critical mass around creatives. We did a fair amount with contractor freelancers. We're still a general practice. I think now we're at a stage of our life cycle where we're beginning to kind of almost reevaluate the clients that we want to work with. And we're almost taking a technology-led approach to those niches. So we're looking at what sector is there that we could work in where we can feel comfortable with providing a technology solution. So we're looking at hospitality at the moment because we can do EPOS and we can do Receipt Bank and Xero and Futurely for reporting. We can do the virtual FD stuff with them. So we're building those around a technology stack rather than saying, we quite like the idea of working with hospitality, so we'll do that, and then we'll go and see what apps we can find. So we're identifying technology stacks.
You've brought apps into the conversation, and you both have the kind of creative sector in common. Can you tell us, what kind of role and how you go about what that ecosystem allows you to do, and then how you maybe have went about finding the right kind of portfolio for that kind of client?
It's a really good question. Something that I think is quite easy to get distracted with, because with all of these apps, there's always a bright, shiny new thing that you can jump on next. So I think that there's two aspects to it. One is in terms of practice efficiencies, and one is client efficiencies or the client experience. So we start with Xero as our accounting engine, as our accounting platform, and then look at the data flows. So we obviously want the direct bank feeds plugged in. Then we'll and you both mentioned Receipt Bank, so we use Receipt Bank to get those bits in, and actually that's just a really good start, because what we can do very quickly is save our clients from doing their receipts or their expenses at the weekend, and automatically we've given them Sunday afternoon back that they can spend with their family, as we said before. And then beyond that, Will's example of the hospitality industry is brilliant, because all of a sudden you can really create digital transformation for your clients, right? So you've got a booking system and staff management system all the way through.
I mean, how did you? I mean, have you got your sort of preferred solution bundled together yet, or are you still examining that?
It's one of those things we're still evolving. We're talking to lots of suppliers. There's some local suppliers at the moment that are doing Xero integration, so we'd quite like to work with them to help them build a platform. Then there's the opportunity for cross referrals with them and so on. I think Paul's right in terms of that initial process. The next things that we tend to look at for clients is the obvious things like getting paid. So we'll talk to every client about Go Cardless and Stripe and Chaser if they're sending invoices to people. So we're looking at ways to help our clients run their business through technology that we know really well, And that, I think, is a challenge with the ecosystem with Xero. It's so huge. So we talk to people, and it's, well, where do we start? What should we be looking at?
So you're experiencing that. I mean, how have you conquered that initial puzzlement?
It's focusing on the things that are important. So from a client point of view, we want to make sure that we can make their accounting process as efficient as possible. So that's Receipt Bank, it's Xero, it's bank feeds, it's then getting paid, Chaser, Go Cardless, etc. Then we start to look at, well, what will improve your workflows within your business, and we then get into the kind of niche stuff, whether it be Vend for EPOS or whatever it might be, and start to think about that. What we're finding more is clients are coming to us and saying, I'm using Xero and I would like to do this, what do I use? So then we're kind of having to run off and do some research ourselves and see what works. But the relationships we have mean that we can fairly quickly find who we need to be talking to.
Do you find, has that how it's worked for both of you, that sort of it's kind of almost a solution? You've got to be able to get experience with the solution to implement it and support it. So does that kind of come by, do the clients come to you wanting that sort of incremental process they work through, or are you getting the kind of challenge of, I want to set up a design agency, kit me out?
So I think, like in my experience, it's more incremental. That you kind of tackle one problem at a time. It's like in any organisation, takes a long time. Like if you listen to Will's approach, it makes complete sense. Well, how can I give you a benefit? So we've got the accounting bit done. How can I help you get paid faster? And that in and of itself, then the next bit might be, how can I deliver alerts and insights to you that tell you things that you didn't know, kind of thing. That would be my approach. What's yours, Will?
I think that's how we've certainly seen it evolve over the last couple of years. I think we're beginning to see an increase in the number of firms that are coming in and saying, I'm using Xero and I want to be able to do X and Y and I want to be able to automate that process. So I think clients are beginning to be more aware of what the possibilities are, and that creates a challenge for firms, because we always like to think we should be the ones that are going to clients and saying, hey, you're in this sector, you should be using this product. But it's so vast, it's physically impossible for us to do that. Certainly as a firm, one of the things I'm really keen to do is build that capability in-house. You look at what Xero have done in Australia and New Zealand, they have this concept of cloud integrators, and firms are moving into that space and having dedicated resource to be able to build an app stack for a client. And that's quite exciting. For me, I kind of look at that and think, actually, we'd like to do that. But
I did like, I think, for the accounting web members, that idea of, you were saying, of almost, it is a step-by-step, you don't have to leap, over the skyscraper now. You can climb it floor by floor.
Yeah, and I think in the nicest possible way, Will's a freak, isn't he? Look what Will's done. It's absolutely amazing. But not everyone has the bandwidth or frankly the desire to do what Will's done. And actually, probably the future will be the likes of Will helping a load of other firms. So. I think the incremental approach for most people, just limiting the focus, you certainly can't be all things to all people. These products are developing at such a rate. Just look at the number of updates that's run through Xero in the last year, just staying on top of that, staying on top of Receipt Bank and Go Cardless. You certainly can't stay on top of 100 different apps, I don't think.
Half a dozen apps, the right half a dozen apps will transform a firm and what they can deliver to their clients. I think that's the key bit, and half a dozen is manageable, and it kind of almost 80-20 rule, isn't it? That actually those 6 could deliver 80% of the total value you're going to be able to deliver almost.
Okay, well, we're sort of nipped beyond the formal session, but that was a really helpful orientation to that app landscape. I guess before we start taking floor questions from the viewers, just like to get, we've talked about sort of MTD in the 2018, we've covered the next 18 months or so. What are you guys focusing on beyond that, beyond 2020? Maybe I'll start with you, and what are you doing about that particular issue?
Yeah, so two things really for me at WOW. One is the data thing. So think about all the data we have on our clients. How can we get a single source of truth? How can we join the dots so that we're able to power our people at WOW with the insight to be able to pick up the phone to their clients and say, hey John, I just noticed that this happened. Do you need a chat about it? That's kind of my dream and my vision. The second thing then is the people that are able to do that. I think if you came into our offices at WOW, you'll find if I say so myself, an absolutely lovely bunch of people, and it's how do we retain those people? How do we retain that culture through 2020, make the necessary additions, so on and so forth.
And what are your kind of mid-range priorities, Will?
The whole shifting client expectation is a big thing for us, and how we keep pace of that. We've built our own practice management software to start to deal with some of the challenges that Paul's talking about. We have so much data. We have receipt bank dashboards, we have Zero HQ, we have Futurely dashboards, and it's like where does staff need to go to find out the things that really matter. Our system development is because there wasn't anything on the market that ticked all the boxes, so it's about how we track workflows, how we manage those client relationships, the ability to start to automate some of those client touch points, but also getting that data out of the various systems and getting it into one place where we can then deliver the real value to clients. So it's this shifting expectation. You look at what is happening in society generally. We all expect stuff to happen now and quickly and responsive. So how do we as an accountancy firm deliver that to our clients of now and our future clients that may have even different expectations?
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, well, I'm scanning the questions. There's a couple of good ones. I'll maybe start with Robin Banks, who takes us back to the kind of point you were making all around the brand. And I think if we look, if everybody's, to a client, accounting, a great set of accounts or stuff, they find might be hard to tell the difference. So obviously the brand is that will be the differentiator, or one of the ways of differentiating your firm in the future. So Robin wants to know, was the brand something you thought about and formally worked out before you started out, or have you been refining that incrementally?
So it's been refined over time. When I set the practice up 10 years ago, there was almost a sense of we were trying to push some boundaries, but at the same time it was at a time when I don't know whether the profession was ready for the boundaries to be pushed. I think if we'd have set up a pub in our office 10 years ago, we'd have had real challenges. We had people suggest when we adopted cloud in 2008 that it was a fad and it was never going to take off, and so we had lots of people challenging our approach 10 years ago. So the brand that we have now probably wouldn't have worked 10 years ago. So it's kind of had to evolve in terms of the way it looks. I think the values are right. We did an exercise probably 7 years ago that was really about establishing what our brand values were. And we reviewed that again 2 years ago, and they're still the same. So nothing's changed in terms of, as a business, what it is we're trying to do and the way we're trying to do it. The way we present it has evolved and changed, I think. And we can be a bit more bolder now than we could 10 years ago, because we've kind of got acceptance for some stuff we were doing.
I mean, in a line to brand, Paul, you're operating in a creative industries, kind of feels like this must be second nature to you. Having established brands, and we're seeing just more and more of this, is there's a huge amount of social activity spreading those values out in the market. Again, that's probably where I think the battle for clients is going to be fought over the next years. What's your view on, how do you see that? How well do you think the profession is adapting? They're adapting to the cloud now. How well are they adapting to the digital media tools?
So I think if you take a step back, part of the challenge is actually getting the relevant expertise within your firm. As an accountant, you can't be jack of all trades. We're talking about people being people managers, being technical experts, learning about apps, and now you want them to be Facebook ad gurus. It's just not practical. What we actually need is to have the relevant expertise within the firm, and that's probably the biggest thing. So sure, we'll see increasing activity on social media, but the challenge is to make sure that it's congruent. So Will talked about values, that when you're tweeting or Facebooking or Snapchatting, that I sound really old, don't I? that it's all congruent with the values, and it's actually relevant, and the content you're creating is relevant to your clients, to your prospective clients.
Okay, now there's another one. You both, I think, well, your example of your team kind of doing daily reconciliations and putting the exceptions. So you're almost giving a sort of daily set of management accounts if you need to people. But that prompted a question about, are you recruiting more SEMA qualified people into your firm?
That's really interesting, because we've been having that debate in-house at the moment. The first question is actually with some of the stuff we're doing at the start point of that process is does it need to be accountants? Is the first point. We still think at the moment they need to be, or at least a lot of them are trainees and everything else. So it's part of their learning process. The work that we're getting into now on the back of kind of having a very good compliance process is that we want to be doing more work that fits with a management accountant skill set. We took on an MD 12 months ago who's a management accountant by background as well as operations and stuff. So I definitely think that there is a shift, and we've certainly had conversations with people with a much more management focus. And given the automation of compliance to a large extent, I think that's a really valuable thing for firms to consider.
Paul, do you see management accounting, is that the future of practice?
So there's definitely a huge benefit to be had from the people who've undergone the rigour of attaining professional qualification. Now, whether that's ACA, CCA, SEMA, is to some extent less relevant than actually the core skills. The number one skill that defines whether or not someone's going to be successful in the workplace of the future is their ability to learn. So that's number one, what we're looking for. Number two, what we're looking for is people that can have those client interactions, that can interact with clients. So kind of skirting around the question, but I'm less fussed on which badge they've got than which core skills that they have as a human being.
Okay, good riposte there. We're getting close to the final lap. I mean, I think it's whizzed by, and there's been so much to absorb. But it's interesting. You were striking chords with some of the questioners. Louise kind of endorsed the idea we were pointing out about all your points about niche. She's saying it allows her to be UK wide rather than just a local accountant.
So I think that's a massive point with the digital platforms so many people were talking about. If you did a heat map of the WOW clients, the UK looks like it's got measles, with a bit of a hot spot in central London, to be completely honest, which 20 years ago just wasn't possible.
Yeah. Okay, well, and I guess, you, rather than competing with 40 people in her area, she's saying, she's taking that further. Okay, we've looked 18-month horizons, we've looked, to the beyond that. I guess the final farewell question would be, okay, when we've finished Practice Excellence Week and you're able to get back to your firms, probably Friday or Monday morning, what's the next forward-looking thing you're going to do, Paul?
Very, very good question. So it's all about this data bit. Like what more can we do to increase the knowledge we have of our clients? Part of it's the human bit. How can we get a better understanding of the people behind the businesses? Because ultimately we talk about businesses, but they're that's not really the thing. It's really the people. How can we get under the bonnet of what makes those people tick, why they're in business, and how we can help them achieve whatever it is that they want to achieve?
Do you think there's a tool that will give you that vision, that insight?
Without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, you're just still looking for it.
It's a work in progress. but you look at what we're able to do with Xero, Receipt Bank, the associated reporting add-ons, is just light years ahead of what we could even do 5 years ago. So I think it's a really exciting time to be in accounting right now.
Yeah.
And what step into the future will you be taking?
Well, I think to echo Paul's point now, I think Paul and I have both been in this space for kind of 9 years now, and we've seen huge change. But I think that pales into insignificance with the change we're going to see over the next 5, in terms of the rate of development of the technology. But in terms of what we're doing. 2016 was very much a kind of almost our first transitional year as a business. Nine years in, we're still doing a huge amount of work at the moment around how we can enhance client experience, and that's the big driver in our business at the moment. There's been lots of change of focus and everything else, but that's all around almost how we go back to the client experience that we had when it was me sitting in an office with kind of 2 people, and how do we translate that with a firm of 35? So that's the thing that I see us kind of continuing to develop over the next 12 months.
Thank you. Okay, Robin, I will be going, but Robin's just stuck in a last-minute one about sort of priorities for 2018. I think that does hark back. Paul, you were talking about it being just actually also, you're interested in the data, but the current year you were talking about making that digital transition, from the analog accountancy to digital accountancy. I can't remember, what was your priority for 2018? Earlier was it the sort of brand message?
It's the changing expectation,
okay.
Around client expectation. I think for people that are at the point of that digital transformation piece, my advice is the thing that they need to do now is actually just ask that question, why? So why am I doing it? Yeah. Is it to tick a box? And if so, just reevaluate that before you adopt that approach. I think that's the biggest thing I think we can do.
And I think Paul's been saying this as well in the other track that we did today. Get out there, meet the clients and talk, start interrogating them on what their expectations are. I have this Zen saying about, almost actually practice isn't really defined as much by the people in the practice, it is defined sometimes by the clients. So find out where they're going, what their expectations are, as Paul advises. It's been a great session. Thank you for listening in. Do give us your feedback, and you'll be getting the download shortly, or a link to a download just summarising some of the things, some techniques you can use to try and sort of stay ahead of the game. So thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you again at Practice Excellence Live.